decisions to maintain business output where we can. For some organizations, there's been an amazing effort to re-roll processes and production and to provide additional medical supplies, for example, whether that be personal protective equipment, ventilators, or even hand gel. The more agile and adaptable companies have rapidly adjusted their procedures to maintain a sustainable level of output while retaining the foundation to scale back up to full operations when that time comes. For others, there's been a major impact on day-to-day operations. Our on-site customer support has been reduced or stopped completely. Organizations have had to try and balance the need to protect their employees while trying to maintain a viable level of output. And organizations have implemented the necessary social distancing rules and reorganized and reduced shifts. But in that, equipment downtime has been exacerbated and preventive maintenance impacted, increasing the risks of systems and equipment failure downstream. And as we now know, social distancing is the primary response applied to slow down the transfer of the virus. And perhaps we can already see the role that technology can play in limiting the exposure of employees. Digital transfer and online environments can help greatly reduce touch points between employees, and online conferencing and meeting systems like Teams or Zoom and Skype enable basic video interaction and connect employees to maintain both contact and the ability to collaborate. While goods can still be moved, travel restrictions on people, sometimes forewarned and sequenced, often less so, have had a major impact. Field service technicians are either not in the field or conversely still there with little or no support. The same applies to subject matter experts and their ability to inject knowledge and timely solutions to support troubleshooting. As a quick aside, I mentioned that in a former life I'd been involved in leadership and team development, and this also included sports coaching. And in performance coaching, one of the key areas we focus on for performance improvement looks at what we call controlling the controllables. In broad terms, that means we focus on two key areas: our own efforts, i.e. what we can do ourselves, and our attitude, how we do it, our mindset, if you like, in the face of a challenge or an adversity. I think it's an equally valid approach when dealing with the disruption caused by events like the current COVID-19 crisis. Our agility and ability to adapt to the current situation and innovate are all things we can take control of. And mixed reality remote support provides us with a way of injecting an element of control into our ways of working, and also a lever that we can pull to keep operations flowing. It will be no surprise to any of you that we've been working closely for a few months now with a number of clients who are in the process of reviewing mixed reality remote worker support solutions, and clearly we continue to do so. One particular program director said that if we got this in place before COVID, we'd still be in production. And that's not simply 2020 hindsight or wishful thinking. I think he was already aware of the utility and potential impact of this technology, and hence the program he was leading to implement it. But while he was understandably frustrated having not been able to implement that original plan on time, I sensed that he was pretty optimistic that once deployed, this technology would enhance the organization's resilience. And we can define that as the ability of any organization to anticipate, prepare for, respond and adapt to future change and sudden disruption. So what is mixed reality and why is it important? Mixed reality is the blending together of our real world environment with the digital world, a way to help enhance employee experience, knowledge transfer and productivity. The technology allows us to instantly map our real world environment and enables us to share, place and manipulate digital objects or data, for example, images, documents or 3D models into that real world environment. To date, mixed reality technologies have more commonly been deployed in design, simulation and modeling, as well as visualization and visual sequencing. And this technology is increasingly employed across a range of sectors, and certainly we've seen it in aerospace and defense, oil and gas, nuclear, manufacturing, automotive, mining, construction and medical. And it is really particularly well suited to highly technical and complex environments. Market studies and our own experience perhaps suggest that mixed reality will progressively become part of the tool set deployed in support of both production and field operations, and utilized to support production control, quality assurance, as well as support and maintain complex systems and processing equipment. Applied as a remote support function, mixed reality offers us a huge potential for frontline operators and engineers, enabling them to access, say, key sensor data or enterprise resource plans, or digital twins of the equipment or facilities they're working on. It also allows them to reach back and draw on support from experts from across their own company or from original equipment manufacturers and other suppliers across the globe in order to ensure processes, systems, equipment are able to perform at peak efficiency, and that any equipment downtime is minimized. So if you like, why is this different from just using a mobile phone or a tablet or a video call that we're on now, which are all, by the way, perfectly legitimate, although somewhat limited means of providing remote support. In the first instance, a field operative is wearing a headset, for example, the HoloLens, which I referred to earlier. Interacting with the headset, the operator initiates a video call and connects to a remote expert, while enabling that operator to remain hands-free and heads up on the task. This is both safer and more effective than handheld options. The subject matter expert has the live audio feed from the site and has the same point of view of the task as that operator. And the expert then can remotely coach the operator through a task, providing assurance and guidance as required. The subject matter expert can also use live photo capture and in-view ink annotations to highlight components or reference points, ensuring accuracy. Some mixed reality remote support applications have additional functionality. To assist a remote worker, the subject matter expert can drag and drop documents, checklists, or even the relevant pages from a technical manual into the field of view of the operator, preventing the need for that remote worker to rely on physical manuals or papers. This ability to offer task reference objects can be enhanced further through the use of digital twins or other 3D assets that can be sent by the expert and then manipulated by the operator in his or her real world environment, all the while being coached by that expert. These 3D objects can also be animated to provide a step-by-step process for the remote worker to follow, and again, all assured by that expert viewing the task remotely. In some applications, all those artifacts that are sent by the expert can then be stored and accessed by that worker later and offline, enabling that operator to review that task and then be available in the future to them if required to do that task again. And that sort of supports that knowledge transfer from the expert to the remote worker. Why deploy mixed reality remote support solutions? Well, the current crisis aside, there are plenty of good reasons why this would be important to organizations who either deploy a field force or conversely are dependent on field service technicians from OEMs or other suppliers, or who run safety critical and processes in controlled areas. Key to the utility of mixed reality support is that it allows those subject matter experts to guide frontline workers without traveling on site. This uses the expert's time more efficiently, it reduces travel and subsistence costs, and it enables the operator to learn on the job guided by that expert. This way of working reduces equipment and system downtime, and because the expert can assure what the operator is doing, it reduces the likelihood of errors and the requirement for rework, which can often be very expensive. We're also increasingly aware of the environmental impact of our operations, and most organizations will have targets to reduce that impact. With the reduced need for travel and issues increasingly resolved remotely, mixed reality remote support can also contribute to these more strategic organizational goals. So why is it important in the current crisis? I think the aspiration to return to normal operations while protecting our employees is paramount. Mixed reality remote support can be deployed rapidly. So for instance, in tests that we've run, once the headset software is installed, we've had calls initiated and running within 6 minutes using cloud-based packages. Of note, these systems also run on-premise, so within the contained systems of an organization, but that is more complex and relies heavily on security to ensure no connectivity with systems outside of the organization. Something instead that Kognitiv Spark also do, and I'm sort of quite proud to say that we're currently regarded as global leaders in that field. With travel restrictions and social distancing in mind, mixed reality could provide a tool that maintains the safety of our employees and enables the availability of expert advice and the capability to provide rapid response for troubleshooting while compensating for that inability to travel. I think this is best achieved through using those remote troubleshooting activities to reduce the physical touch points for our employees. It provides that remote peer assurance and review of the required maintenance or repair task or any other activity, and concurrent and secure access to digital versions of manuals, diagrams, and 3D models. So there's no need for manual handling of those materials. And it all contributes to better collaboration and a reduction in those risks of errors. Well, that's the theory. What happens in reality, and how is it being deployed today? I think mixed reality is a technology that's really about the use case and identifying where it has the ability to provide those options, utility and agility for an organization, as well as providing another option to control those controllables that I mentioned earlier. For us as a company, our focus has been remote worker support use cases because we believe that contributes directly to business continuity and enhanced ways of working. And I think we also know that the technology can be brought to bear now. And in our particular case, we built our software around the capability of the Microsoft HoloLens, which is now in its second iteration. I think we're also acutely aware that any application of emerging technology is about building trust in that technology and trust in our relationship with that technology. And I think that's important. And we believe that we could deploy the technology rapidly and have a near immediate effect and significant impact on the company's bottom line. So delivering savings and other efficiencies, as well as operational effect with increased operator performance and engagement and enhanced customer support and satisfaction. I think those are all important in everyday operations. They're even more critical in a crisis. I think as a company, we're fortunate to have some clients who had a level of foresight to be early adopters of remote worker support technology into their everyday working practices. And in doing so, they've already established those working routines and practices that enhance not only their existing operations, but also their resilience to this type of crisis. And in concert with other measures, it's just provided them a level of flexibility to sustain operations. I think our clients also understand the inherent challenges of being early adopters. It's a bit of a journey, and they understand it's not really about a fancy headset or seductive visuals, and that it's about the inherent capability of that headset and the ability to have that stable, reliable, and secure communication to enable a functioning mixed reality environment. And that's perhaps something to bear in mind and come back to in the question and answer session at the end. So I'd like to take a couple of short use cases to illustrate the points I've made so far, and show how mixed reality remote support can deliver rapid effect. In the first case, Rogers Electric and Machines is an electric motor and other equipment sales and service company with facilities in New Brunswick and Newfoundland and Labrador, serving clients in oil and gas and mining, among other industries. I think at the time they were acutely aware that for some of their customers, the cost of equipment downtime could run into tens, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars per hour. And with their customers often in remote locations, just getting there was significantly adding to the cost of that downtime, let alone the travel costs involved. This scenario prompted Rogers to integrate remote worker support technology into their traditional service processes, and with the aim of perhaps reducing those response times and that client equipment downtime. Rogers Electric achieved their aim. They reckon that they're saving between 3 and 17 hours on equipment downtime per remote worker call, obviously depending on the location of the equipment they're supporting. And in essence, when used, they were able to deliver to clients significantly faster. And not only that, they found they were saving on average $7,000 per call, meaning that in the first month of use, they'd already gained a return on their investment in that mixed reality solution. I think what is even more interesting, though, is how they've adapted the use of technology to keep critical services running through the COVID-19 crisis. So in normal operations, the company frequently visited clients and their sites to conduct those equipment installations and service. Prior to deploying mixed reality remote support, they sometimes had to send multiple technicians to a job on site, particularly if the task was overly complex, or if on the ground the resources needed further assistance. As the crisis took hold, they really adapted a whole series of their operating procedures and redeployed their technology to greatly reduce that burden of travel and the sort of the risk to human contact. One of their procedural changes was to halt travel to client sites for repair and maintenance, opting instead to bring that in-house and repair the equipment to their various locations around Atlantic Canada. Really an effort to keep both their staff and their clients' staff safe and socially distant. They then redeployed their mixed reality remote support tools back into their base location in Bathurst and used it internally to connect their own experts isolated at home to the technicians that were still working on the shop floor, although they had also had procedures for socially distancing there as well. And this enabled them to support that reduced number of technicians and sustain a certain level of operation. Turning to SharePoint Group. They're based in Calgary, specialize in electrical and instrumentation services across a range of sectors, but predominantly oil and gas, where they are regularly called upon to troubleshoot problems and resolve issues. Traditionally, if a field worker came across a problem, they would call a SharePoint Group expert and use their cell phone to record or take pictures. The expert would then take a couple of hours or more to diagnose that problem. And in at least 20% of the time, with no immediate resolution, that expert would then have to drive or fly to reach the site. SharePoint, rather like Rogers Electric, wanted a solution that would help them eliminate the, on average, 14 to 20 hours it would take an expert to get on site, and more efficiently use their senior technicians' time and reduce the travel costs. In doing so, they would aim to improve the quality of their customer service and reduce that costly downtime. Since the introduction of mixed reality remote support in October last year, SharePoint have already made 300 calls using this system. And I'll take you back to those figures that came out of Rogers Electric on how much can be saved per call. 60% more issues are now resolved without a senior technician having to travel on site. This has generated significant reduction in equipment downtime. It's increased senior technician availability, which has also helped reduce program delays as a result, as they're more available to support that. all the while reducing travel costs. Like Rogers Electric, SurePoint have re-examined ways to adjust their procedures and deploy their technology to ensure social distancing and cope with those additional travel restrictions. So they've basically reduced the number of field service technicians that they deploy. They've split their mixed reality packages between in-house locations and those remaining field service technicians. And they're also in the process of making mixed reality support packages available to their own customers to enable them to adapt to the current crisis, as well as deliver remote project management and review. I think another interesting area is that they're now conducting periodic inspections and site audits remotely through the mixed reality application. I think it's a story we've seen echoed in other sectors. One of our defense clients has anticipated a saving of around 20% on travel and subsistence costs for their field service teams. And that's their global service teams. And another has already deployed it globally to augment field service and support for vehicles deployed overseas with the Canadian Armed Forces. In doing so, they've been able to ensure operational availability of those vehicles during the current crisis. I think probably it's a good time to sum up. It does not stretch the imagination, I think, to identify any number of use cases where mixed reality remote support can complement, augment, or be integrated seamlessly with traditional processes. I also have no doubt that the experience gained out of the current crisis is going to reshape the way we do business. And as organizations adapt their plans and chart a pathway to recovery, I think it's important to understand that we already have some of the tools to support that recovery and help bolster future resilience to face the next worst case scenario. Mixed reality remote support enables us to combine innovation, technology with traditional field service and subject matter expertise. And it provides the ability to equip operators with the knowledge and resources they need to complete any task, anytime, and very nearly anywhere. It's an attractive proposition and in normal operations, but to sustain operations in a crisis, it could well be considered a critical capability. It's also one that is deliverable today. It can be tailored and scaled to the respective needs of any organization and deployed rapidly and contribute to the effort to keep operations flowing and our people safe. And I think I would conclude by arguing that those organizations that have already introduced those more agile ways of working and taken the opportunity to leverage digital technologies like mixed reality are able to build more innovative digital cultures, and they're establishing more durable resilience in their ways of working, as well as the potential springboard to recovery. Thank you. I hope that's provided some food for thought, and I'll now pass you back across to Lisa to corral the question and answers.
Thanks, Iain. Thanks for the great presentation, and really appreciated the practical use case scenarios as well. I think that brings it into context. I think you've mentioned a lot of the benefits of the mixed reality product offerings and what they can return on investment. But from not only the tangible cost saving perspective, right now it's really about the continuity and sustainability piece. And I think you referenced earlier when you started to speak about, one of the customers or clients had referenced, if we had gotten this into place before COVID, we would still be in production. So I think that speaks volumes to the benefit. We had a question on the line, and I think Sarah has unmuted the folks who would like to answer a question. You will be prompted with a OK button to unmute your mic if you'd like to ask a question, but we do have one. I'll kick it off with this. We had Tony Good asking a question in our chat box with respect to D&D rigorous security requirements that often preclude outside access to video, software and applications, making it difficult to deploy virtual reality and mixed reality solutions that require access to the cloud. How has Kognitiv Spark addressed these constraints? And I see Sean has answered, but maybe I'll turn it over to you, Iain, to have an audio response to that.
Sure, Tony, thank you for the question. I think, as I mentioned early on, part of that, the implementation of these technologies, particularly in environments that are very sensitive about their data and are very security aware, it is part of that journey. One of the ways that we are working with them is initially to kind of sandbox that activity so that we understand their requirements and really understand our capability to keep their information secure. What I would say at the moment is that as a company, we kind of started from a security perspective. So the software that we've developed has been built with security as part of its foundation. And because we write every bit of code and control every bit of code in it, it allows us to really have a good understanding of that and be able to share that with the sort of experiment and trials teams with D&D and allow them to test that fully. And that's something we continue to work with. So without sort of going into too much detail on how that actually works, what it does mean is that we're able to progress that work with D&D as we move down that stage. Yeah, you're quite right. It's I think the sort of initial view in many cases that it's oh no, we can't do that. It's not secure. And I think in the relationship we're building with D&D, we're starting to show them that actually it can be very secure.
Right. And in the digital environment, Iain, one of the other things we hear is the low bandwidth restrictions within government departments and otherwise. Can you speak to some of the features of your product that are helping address some of those constraints?
Yeah, bandwidth is really important, and I think probably experience with sort of virtual and augmented reality environments and how digital artifacts are built. They generally come out of a sort of a gaming engine background. So the rendering is done by gaming engines that may be familiar to some of you. Those take up significant amounts of bandwidth. So anywhere in the, let's say 5 megabytes to 15 megabytes plus range of bandwidth. I think one of the things that we've been able to do, and I think it goes back to that point about we can control the code and therefore we can get any extraneous code out of the way, is we're able to operate down at 256 kilobits per second. And bearing in mind some of the remote locations and some of the connectivity issues that we're likely to experience, I think that is a particular differentiator for us, and something we kind of jealously guard at the moment.
Great. I think we have a question in the queue, Iain, from Gary Wood. Gary, if you'd like to go ahead.
Good morning, Iain. How are you? Phenomenal presentation. Very, very well done. I'm with a company that works in this same field, so we hear you. We understand what's going on. My question is, if a client wanted to sign on for this remote support work, is there any problems with? Has the COVID problem caused any problems with delivery of the headset, or can they get one fairly rapidly?
Thanks, Gary. No, I think we're not experiencing any particular problems with that. We had I'll give you a case in point. We're working with one of our clients in the US. We were able to turn around an order within about 3 days, and remotely deliver obviously the software and the remotely deliver the training to help them.
On that subject, Iain, we have another question from one of our attendees. With respect to actual delivery of the headset to the client, if it's a new client and they're not familiar with how to use the headset hardware and the actual software, how long does that training process take to kind of get them up to speed on the usability of the product?
Yeah, I think we're still working with that. We previously, obviously, we would deliver training on site, and that might take a day or two, depending on the numbers and the nature of that particular training. I think as we move that in the current situation to remote training, we're working through that. But that said, you know, we can do it in steps. So, you know, here's an hour's worth of intervention, have a play. Here's another hour's worth of intervention, have a play. And we can do it that way. And we can do that over Teams. We can do that over some of the systems we've got. But we have a very experienced team in our operations team, and they can get quite imaginative about how they do that.
Great. Any other questions? I don't see any in our chat or Q&A feature here. Do we have any other questions from the line? No? Okay. Well, I think we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much, Iain, for your presentation. We really, really appreciate it. And I'd like to thank Kognitiv and all of our participants for joining us today. Hopefully you've seen some potential applications maybe in your own business for mixed reality support. And I do invite you to contact Iain or a member of the Kognitiv team. We will be sharing the slide deck from today and the video recording if you'd like to refer back to it, or perhaps you have clients or customers that might see some value in these offerings. So we'll certainly share those with you, and we'd like to invite you to join us next Wednesday, April 29th, for our next webinar in the series with our ACADA member CoLab, a St. John's-based company that is streamlining and increasing team productivity through their engineering design collaboration platform, which they will be offering to businesses for a limited time for free in response to the COVID-19 environment. So we invite you to join us for that same time, 11 o'clock next Wednesday. Thanks again, Iain and Sean, and we look forward to chatting with you soon. Take care.
Thanks, Lisa. Bye now.